Welcome home to philosophy, where we wonder about everything and anything is possible. Hi, I'm Dr. Robert Corey, the Laughing Philosopher. Life is complicated. The world is complicated, and you are complicated. Figuring out how to live a happy, meaningful life, guided by wisdom and reason, is not easy. Is life a game? What is love? Should I fear death? Is this a just world? Almost from the moment of birth, you've been told how to behave, how to fit in, and how to fulfill other people's expectations. You fear that you will lack importance or cease to exist in the lives of others if you think for yourself and question the rules and roles you've been told define you. Wisdom and reason will remove this illusion so you can live authentically in the world around you, find your true purpose, and become your real self. Welcome to episode number 107. Memento Mori. Stoic secrets to transform fear of death into fearless living. In this episode, I will introduce you to Stoicism's ultimate life hack: how to turn death into a life coach on the Stoic path to living fully and fearlessly. Let's get to it. What do you fear? Fear of change? Fear of failure? Fear of rejection? Fear of loneliness? Fear of uncertainty? Fear of being poor, being judged, being blind or paralyzed? Fear of something shockingly bad happening to a loved one? These and more are your fears. And what is your greatest fear? What is the worst thing that could happen to you? It is the end of life, the act of dying, death. Embracing your fears and refusing to face up to them will guarantee you live a small life. Living as a slave to your fears will ensure you live a pointless, boring life devoid of meaning, feeling, and excitement you need to feel fully alive. How then do you conquer your fears and live fully and fearlessly? Once you conquer your greater fear of death, your lesser fears will lose their power over you. You will be fearless and free to live fully. Let us reason together on the Stoic path to living fully and fearlessly, regardless of adversity and even death. We live in terror of death. We cling to youth and claw at life, afraid to let go. We are afraid to admit to ourselves we are going to die. So we behave as if we are going to live forever. We put off happiness for today to wait for tomorrow, even though it is always today. Tomorrow never comes, and all we get by waiting is more waiting. The most successful religion in the world, Christianity, would not exist without our greatest fear. Christians affectionately refer to their religion as the good news. So what is the good news? The good news is freedom from sin and freedom from death. As Paul said, death is the wages of sin. Christianity is just spiritual aspirin, the antidote for our worst fear, death. In the Stoic philosophy, too, simply because it is the worst outcome anyone can imagine. Death is our worst fear. Death is the end of everything, by definition, so it's impossible to think of anything worse happening after that. The Roman Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, all believed that once we overcome the fear of death, every other adversity and everything else in life becomes so much easier. Once the fear of death is out of the way, other, less important fears lose their hold over us, too. Overcoming the fear of death is the key to our chains and to living fully and fearlessly. He who is brave is free, said Seneca. For Stoics, the root of all evils is not death, but rather the fear of death. We cannot enjoy anything as long as we are held back from true happiness by the fear of death. Bravery is not the absence of fear, but victory over it. How then do Stoics conquer the fear of death so as to live fully, freely, and authentically? To believe adversity and misfortune will never hit you would be irrational and out of touch with reality. Life is no soft affair. Things will be thrown at you and things will hit you. You must expect slips, knocks, and falls. So pay attention to the rough road you're on. It's not just the strong who survive. It's the durable. A life worth living, a life guided by wisdom and virtue, the best possible life, will involve some pain and suffering. Just make up your mind it will happen. Be ready and be brave. Welcome every adversity and misfortune you face as a test of your good character. Philosophy literally means love of wisdom. And philosophy is not just about abstract ideas. It has a very down-to-earth and practical purpose to put you on the right path to a good character and happy life worth living. Making progress toward the best possible life, a life of living well and doing well, is the sole aim of philosophy. Ignorance is the cause of fear, said Seneca. Philosophy is the antidote. The Latin phrase, Memento Mori, literally means, remember that you have to die. The role model of living fully and fearlessly, of living well and dying well, without an atom of regret or complaint, is Socrates. Of his trial and death, read Plato's dialogue, known as the Phaedo. Surrounded by his best friends, Socrates comforts and even jokes with them as he drinks poison. No one ever died more fearlessly. I cannot read the Phaedo without weeping. Everyone probably needs a role model to emulate and look up to. And in the world of philosophy, you can do no better than Socrates. Living fully is only possible by rehearsing for death. The next time you say goodbye to your spouse or child or any other loved one, think to yourself that they could literally die tomorrow, and this could be your last moment together, because it might be. Someday it will be. Tomorrow has been promised to no one. Death, which no one can predict, could happen at any moment. Your relationship will feel more alive and more precious. Your gratitude for your relationship will be deeper and more profound if you just remind yourself that your loved one could die tomorrow. Seneca said, "Let us greedily enjoy our friends, because we do not know how long this privilege will be ours." Memento Mori. You don't love your car as much as you did when it was new. You're not as excited by it today as you were when you first bought it. But if you imagine your car totaled in an accident, you will feel more grateful for the same car parked in your driveway you now take for granted. You are more likely to take your loved ones for granted if you think they will live forever. If you forget your time with them is limited and shorter than you think or care to admit to yourself. Enjoy them now while you still have them. And it is always now. The first step on the path to living fearlessly is to contemplate your own death. Memento Mori will bring you to life simply by reminding you of the fact that you possess only a finite number of heartbeats, and the real cost of something is the number of heartbeats you must exchange for it. Life is not too short. We just waste too much of it. Spend each day's heartbeats as though they are your last, because they might be. Someday, they will be. You wake up every morning. You look at yourself in a mirror. Tomorrow, just say to yourself, Memento Mori. Remind yourself, someday you will have to die, so live today as though it's your last, because it may be. Someday, it must be. What would you do today if it's your last day and you don't need to care about money? The second step on the Stoic path to living fearlessly is to rehearse for adversity. This discipline is known as the premeditation of future adversity. In Latin, premeditatio malorum. Rehearse bad things in your mind before they happen. This way, you will be intellectually prepared. You will think more clearly and cope more wisely. And the emotional shock of sudden adversity will be reduced. Seneca said, "We should send our minds ahead in advance, and we should consider not just what typically happens, but what could happen." Rehearse misfortune in your imagination before it happens, and it will be more gentle if it should arrive. Marcus Aurelius, one of the 5 good emperors, gave this advice to himself. Say to yourself each morning, "Today I will meet with people who are meddling, ungrateful, overbearing, deceitful, envious, and unsocial." Marcus Aurelius understood that the world is full of stupid, dishonest, selfish, and annoying people. And no matter how hard you try to avoid them, they will cross your path. So when it happens, you won't be surprised because you anticipated and rehearsed it. And you won't have an angry reaction because you mentally and consciously prepared for it. The antidote for fear and dread is premeditation of future adversity. Living well means dying well, too. Death is the final test of your virtue and good character. A fearless death is both brave and thankful. Be brave and face up to your fate without objection or complaint. Be thankful for the good person you are and appreciative for the virtuous life you've lived. Even death cannot harm the good character of a virtuous person. "If you kill me," said Socrates, "you will not harm me so much as yourselves." Premeditation of adversity is then how you will conquer your fear of death. Let's get to it. First, death is as natural as life. Death is the other half of a bargain you made when you were born. You didn't ask to be born, but you accepted the gift of life. It was an offer you could have refused at any time. In exchange for your life, one day you will have to accept death. Memento Mori. A person who is unwilling to die has no business wishing to live. Death is not a punishment, but a natural consequence of being alive. Death, being natural, applies equally to all who live. No one here gets out alive. It makes no more sense to be afraid of death than it does to fear the falling of snow in winter or an eclipse of the moon. There is nothing to fear. Second, in death, you will be fine. Even if death totally annihilates your being, nothing will remain of you, and there will be no you left to suffer in any way from death. Even if something about you does survive your death, say, a soul, then the burden of your physical self will be removed, and you will be set free to enjoy more and better things in whatever state of being awaits you. Death is just a door to enter or exit. It's the end or the beginning of an amazing adventure. Go through it, and either way, you'll be just fine. Again, there is nothing to fear. Third, death is the way home. Death means returning to where you were before you were born. If death is some kind of non-existence, then when you die, you simply return to the same state you were in before you were born. And whatever state you were in, do you remember having any objections or complaints about it? Before you were born, do you remember having any pain or discomfort? Before you were thrown into this world, then, you must have been pretty comfortable and content, satisfied with what one is and what one has, not wanting more or anything else. You can go home again. The price of a ticket is death. To return where you started and know it again for the first time, where you experience only peace and serenity, no hardship or suffering, and no fear. Fourth, and finally, we are born knowing only life. So life feels comfortable and familiar, and death seems strange and unfamiliar. We fear change, so we fear death. We fear the unknown, so we fear death. While we are living, there is no death. And when there is death, we are no longer living. We covet what we see, and we see only life. If death is not something to be afraid of, then it is beneath us. If it is something to be afraid of, then death is beyond us. Either way, you have nothing to fear. Well done. You have graduated from fear and loathing of death to a rich and full life. You have completed the premeditation of future adversity and overcome your fear of death. You have conquered the worst that could happen to you, and your lesser fears have lost their power and control over you. You now possess a total, absolute freedom to live fearlessly and to die fearlessly, no less than Socrates himself. For you, death no longer matters. John Donne, the poet, wrote, "Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die." Memento Mori, my friend. Thank you for listening. I hope you will take what you've learned and be a better person. Think for yourself. Question everything. Accept nothing that does not agree with your own reason and good sense. And I promise you, despite its sham and drudgery, you will get on pretty well in this crazy world. I'm Dr. Robert Corey. Until we meet again, be good.